This would be the final keynote. And we would like to now call the professor from the Waseda University Global Information and Telecommunication Institute, Dr. Sato. He's been especially in charge of the wireless communication area, and especially recently, he is especially in the information technology utilization on the smart technology. So in this field, he is one of the pioneer in this field. He will talk about the aims for the coming ICT-based smart society by learning from 3/11 disaster, learning about how it evolved and the direction forward. So energy, as well as from the disaster prevention standpoint, he's going to give us the keynote speech. So the floor is yours, Dr. Sato. My name is Sato from Waseda University. Thank you for the introduction. I think it goes back 3 years that Dr. Daisho, who gave the keynote speech this morning, have formalized the EV ICT meetings, meaning that the IT together with the Tech EV is to be combined, and have started to discuss about how could the IT be able to utilize in that environment. Now ICT SG, which is the smart grid and ICT, and the research group for that was also established in the Global Information and Telecommunication Institute. And I think some of you who's in this room may have participated to that study group and may have heard of the progress of what the research we've been doing. Now, in the morning session, Dr. Hashimoto had mentioned that out of all the developed countries, one of the large disaster had hit, and that was such an unfortunate situation, knowing that we were an advanced country. And then followed by that, Dr. Daisho had also mentioned about the future EV and its relations to the information technology would become very important going forward. And I think that there was a great advice and insights that was presented in that speech. And Dr. Kamen have also mentioned of the same topic, but I would say that the researchers, including here from Japan as well as abroad, when it comes to the education for the students as well as research for the student, is very working really hard to do that. However, sometimes the contribution by the professionals may not have been done as it was expected. Therefore, I think that some of the researchers from this room may have felt the same. And same thing was actually replicated in myself as well. Therefore, this is one of the area that I kind of feel in reflection of. The achievements of the researchers, as well as when it comes to the education. So we should not just let it end as education or research. I think that we would also need to think as to how we're able to utilize those knowledge and capabilities into the actual life of people. And so keeping that in mind, we would like to look at the smart society with the ICT technology together. And I would say that this is one of the area that we have been researching on, keeping in mind of how to resolve on the automotive issues, as well as how to manage the home electronics in that context. So the actual system needed to be introduced at the same time. So let me touch upon the progress to date, and I think this would give us the great opportunity for us to think together for the future. What this shows is that this is actual demographics when the people was born to this globe as in Homo sapiens, and that origin of human beings was born on this globe, and since then there is a changes in population. And this is quite a rectangular shaped graphical chart, but for about 300,000 years until 2050, this is indicated as a horizontal axis. The vertical axis is indicated as a population. The unit is in 100 million people. 100,000 years ago, 300 years ago, the population was very small. However, since then, they have started the life since the life by conducting grazings and farming, and then 4 major civilization occurred in BC 3000. The human beings have started to grow in number was from industrialization in UK. The people have acquired the capability of mass production from textile business, and with transportation, transported those materials and was now able to carry that by ship. And with that, the industrialization had started to rise in Japan as well, which was in 18th century, 19th century, which is only 2-3 centuries ago. And with that, the population globally had grown dramatically. As is shown in green, this is the temperature of the globe, and as you can see, together with the increase of population, it started to grow. And in 20th century, 21st century, information technology have started to rise, and the world has become more and more global. And internet, the mobile phones, such technology has become one of the closest communication tool for all of us, and has become much more convenient by the advent of those technology. And on the one end, the global population has been surging more so than ever. And at the same time, the temperature of Earth has also grown as well. +3 degrees centigrade was one of the largest temperature growth in this period of time. Now, one of the exploding growth of the population together with the increase of temperature, and looking at the various aspect of the society we live in, and at the same time achieving the safe environment would become the key. This is 2007 IPCC, when Dr. Kamen have taken the central role, and as a member have formulated this temperature change report. This indicates the average global temperature and what kind of impact would this bring to the society. And the temperature on the horizontal and the axis is various needs of people, like water, ecosystem, the food and coastal issues, as well as health issues of human beings, and is in a single chart, as you can see here. As for water, as you can see, there's an increased water availability in the moist tropics and in high latitudes, and also decreasing water availability and increasing drought in mild latitudes and semi and low latitudes, and hundreds of millions of people exposed to the increase of water stress. So those issues have come to rise and has already been estimated. For the ecosystem, up to 30% of species at significant extinction risk. Therefore, there is the situation of that extinction, and at the same time, the discoloration of the corals is also deemed to be a problem. And when the temperature rises 4 to 5 degrees, most of the coral would be whitened, discolored. And if we look at the various shifts of species that would relates to the wildfire risk, and I would say that in Sumatra this kind of risk is already emerging. For the food, small size agricultural businesses and the self-sufficient agriculture, the fisheries, all those would be facing a negative implications. And also low latitude area, the grains, the productivity is going down, and at the same time the increase in some of the grains in the mid-latitude areas. And there will be a huge disaster implications as a result from the floods and the natural disasters, and at the same time could have an increase in various infectious diseases. Together with the increase of the temperature of globe, I would say that this kind of major risk is going to surround us. Now on this page, this indicates various disasters, wars, terrorism, as well as accidents that have caused people to die. And also, this is the actual population density of the areas of the occurrence of these disasters. For example, the Second World War II, this has affected the wide area, including Europe, Japan, Asian countries, and this war had actually occurred in a wide area. 17 million people died. World War I, although that was marginal, 8.5 million people died. When it comes to war, the war is affecting wide area and it causes a huge number of people to death. When it comes to the natural disasters, the Sumatra earthquake, 320,000 loss of lives, which Dr. Hashimoto has mentioned, and Shenzhen earthquake, 870,000 people died, and 22,000 people have died as well. And for the East earthquake and tsunami, there were almost 20,000 or so people have actually been affected. And the terrorism, this is also causing a huge number of deaths. 9/11, the people who lost their lives in 9/11, as well as the crush of Japan Airlines. Although the density of this and the size is small, however, so many people have actually lost their lives, and that is indicated here. As you can see, the numbers are on vertical and horizontal, and there you can see the actual line relations between the two. So the idea is how to diversify the risk by utilization of ICT technology, and I think that this method would become very important. This is the Great East Japan earthquake and what had happened with that disaster. The Kamaishi breakwater, 2 kilometer long, 8 meter high, and 20 meter in width, had broken by 800 meters. And 10 meters high and 2.5 kilometers of such breakwater had actually been damaged. In case of Fukushima, there were 6 meter of breakwater wall, but then there were 14 to 15 meter high tsunami hit the area, and the AC power was lost, and all the emergency electricity was broke, and therefore the cooling water circulator was discontinued, and the current situation is still lingering as an effect from this disaster. These photos were taken on the 24th of April, Kesenuma and Ominato, and this is the photo of the disasters after the earthquake and tsunami hit these regions. This is the tsunami evacuation or the affected maps. As you can see, these are the coastal areas that was affected greatly, and many of the buildings have been swept away. Especially in the Sanriku area, many of the earthquakes, or many of the impact was caused as a result from such earthquake. Now this indicates the actual measures taken on the radiation. TEPCO has been publishing this information, and I've cited it from them. As you can see, from the 12th to 16th, TEPCO right by the Fukushima, this is the amount of the radiation measured right by the central gate of TEPCO in Sendai. And the ventilation was activated, and as you can see, the radiation fallout was observed in the air. Although it did not cause explosion, however, this gave the impression that the huge amount of radiation has been leaking out from this area. The details are shown in Asahi newspaper up until last week, and there was this specific article there that covers the situation, and it keeps track of the amount of the radiation and gives you the overview of how this has transitioned and progressed as a course of process. And there's also the explanation of how people tried to counteract to the radiation fallout.
これは総務省から
So this is data from the Ministry of General Affairs, and it shows the transition of the number of base stations which were off the air. And on the 11th of March, we had the Great East Japan earthquake. At that moment, there weren't so many base stations base station which remained off the air remained flat. And then one day later, we saw the surge in the number of base stations which were off the air. So as long as there is electric power at the base station, it could function. However, once their batteries are depleted, once they cannot get a supply for the petrol, then they cannot run the base station. So 24 hours from the earthquake, so many base stations start going off the air. And then gradually, you can see that the number declined. This data is the disclosed radioactivity measurement weather. The Japan had a system called SPEEDY, which was not utilized at all. This is from the German meteorological agency, and then it was uploaded to the internet. And the 18th of September was the last day. And then German meteorological agency last published data on the 30th of July, but that was continued by the meteorological agency in Switzerland. And how the radiation was leaked was monitored, and the information was updated every day. This is the observational data of radioactivity. You can see from this that how the cesium from the Fukushima are distributed. You can see the wide range of area was exposed to the radioactivity. And now this is about the damage on the submarine cables. There were 6 cables, and of which 5 were cut off. And Ajigaura is the center of the submarine cables, and from which 6 cables were installed, but 5 were cut off. And that caused a huge problem in the internet connection. This data, this is from the fiscal 2010, so it's before the earthquake. And this is called the Japan Seismic Hazard Information Station. So off the Pacific coast of Tohoku earthquake, this was indicated here, and the blue color shows there is a high likelihood of the strike of earthquake, and then also the epicentral earthquake in Tokyo is very much predicted here as well. And some of the researchers in Tokyo recently announced that there is going to be an epicentral earthquake at very high, with the high likelihood, but the government denied that, saying that, well, we are okay for another 30 years or so. Whether it's 30 years or more 44 years, it doesn't really matter. For us, it's important that we have this information, this hazard information station. So with this information, we need to take measures to protect ourselves. And as for the epicentral earthquake in Tokyo, it is predicted in this map that 13,000 people will lose their lives, and then the number of houses to be collapsed is 850,000. And then the probability is 89.9% for the Tokai area. So Tokai is the probability of having earthquake is 89.9%, and then and 10,000 people are going to lose their lives in Tokai, and with the 463,000 houses collapsing, and then east Nankai and Nankai area, 21,000 people are predicted to lose their lives, with the 645,000 houses collapsing, and with the very high probability. So, we have seen there are many various sources for different types of information. However, we have not been able to integrate these pieces of information, which is a great problem for us. So each piece of information was uploaded in the internet for limited audience, or it's shared within the study group. But after the Great East Earth quake, it is necessary for us to bind them together because it's relevant to the oil supply and then food supply, and the nuclear plant accident could happen. And we also need to think how we can search those who are missing. And these issues, in order to be handled properly, we need to have every possible piece of information so that we can protect ourselves effectively. And this is the data on the Kanto region in the Greater Tokyo region about the vulnerability to building collapse. In central Tokyo, you can see it's very red, meaning it's very, very dangerous. So there will be many buildings that will be collapsing upon the earthquake disaster. So we have a huge amount of information which need to be managed and controlled. This is the challenge we face. So the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications did a study into the disaster response and what are the issues for which require further research, and this is just a summary of the findings. The issues is the congestion avoidance and communication restriction, how we can control that, and then how we can manage the suspense time for communication, and in the aftermath of the Great East Japan earthquake, there was realization that audio communication was not available. However, the communication lines were available, so they've started the research into how they can packetize audio data, and we have to check the safety of people, and we can use the disaster message dial service and social networks very useful after the earthquake. And then we also need to think about how we can handle the restriction of the mobile base station and communication devices, and how we can use the mobile satellite or fixed satellite functions in a synchronized manner, or for the broad area and broadband. And then what about the cut of submarine cables, and what is the backup plan for that? And if the landing station for the submarine lines are swept away by the tsunami, what can we do, and what are the spare lines that we could possibly rely on? And then another column shows the standardization and related projects. Basically, it says that we have to secure the number of communication lines. Packetization of audio data is necessary, and maybe WiMAX is something as an option. And then disaster message dial service has not been fully utilized. And Twitter and Facebook can play a very important role in the situation of disaster. And then power source need to be secured. how we can secure the lithium-ion batteries or other large capacity power source, and maybe we can think about the usage of the solar voltaic panel and satellite connection and the municipality satellite connection, and how we can bypass the damaged route. And also towards the bottom, it is very important to check the safety of the buildings for the socially vulnerable people, and sensor network, energy network, and smart grid must be established so that under the disaster situation, the information is delivered in a stable manner, and then energy is delivered in a stable manner. So this is related to infrastructure. So this is about the information communication and then social industrial infrastructure integration under the smart society. So the individual independent network was built separately, but we have to move towards the direction where we can integrate all the networks. And social applications, business applications, and government applications, different sectors will get involved to build integrated network, and we have to find a way.
ということで、
This is the actual disaster evacuation and network. For example, in case of the emergency of the large scale, how to secure the roads, medical institutions, and how to secure medical workers, machinery, as well as drugs. And communication lines would also be necessary. How to evacuate, how to confirm the safety of people, and also convey the safety information of the family members, and all those necessary communication has to be acquired. Now, keeping in mind of all these needs, we are trying to utilize the existing network and see what would be the affected size would be. What we are indicating here is this is from Waseda, right close to Waseda University. The indicated signals are the evacuation sites. I wanted to indicate all Kanto region. However, it was very difficult to do that because there were so many. Therefore, the idea is to kind of map the evacuation sites on the actual map on it so that people can utilize that information in case of emergency. If you look at Google Chrome or Google Map, that's going to be a very useful tool. And at the same time, the position of your whereabouts would be automatically be positioned. Therefore, I think that the utilization of the internet would enable us to access to this sort of information. And if in case you have the opportunity to access to the internet, I would like you to access to this koensampo.com, and by doing that, you would be able to see all this information on a map. I think that you look at the information through your mobile phones or through the PC. But there are all sorts of functionality that comes along with it. For example, if you are affected by certain natural disaster, you need to know the surrounding information, and say if you go to a station because of the huge influx of people, you may not be able to get on the train. In that case, you could take the photo of that environment and then upload it onto the server. And by doing that, the information of that moment in time could be shared with the people who would access to this website. So that would give the hint as to whether the person should go to the station or not, or to go to a closest evacuation site. And I think that this would help people to make decisions in case of emergency. So the smartphone would be in a position to do that. What I've indicated is the exact place, this building where we are. In most cases, if you open up the internet, you would come at the very middle. But then for this area, your whereabouts would not be positioned in the center. Therefore, I have just adjusted this. I took the photo of this area and uploaded onto the server, and people could share this visual information. And this is already done via internet. But at the end, you would, if you're able to check this up with your smartphone, then that would be ideal. This is where Odaiba region. So one person would take the photo there, and let's say another person was in Tokyo Station, then that person could also upload the photo taken at the Tokyo Station in the same manner. The white area is where this person is in Tokyo Station and have uploaded the photos of that area. When it comes to the evacuation, there are Shinjuku area and there's another area in Yokohama which is designated to be the major evacuation sites when you look up this map. Well, the internet capability seems to be slow here, so the actual motion is very slow. But this is the data taken from the central Tokyo Station. You see the white area, that's the information in Odaiba, and also the data taken from Tokyo Station will be the following. Well, in the real world, you could get this service from your smartphones, and the idea is to share the variety of information through the smartphones. And in the information communication, this map indicates the energy issue. This indicates the primary energy in Japan and the energy balance. The global population would grow, therefore the supply of the primary energy and also the energy balance, which would be the final outcome of the primary energy, would increase. This covers until 2020 the amount of the primary energy versus the actual prediction of the energy balance. In case of Japan, the population is deemed to decrease. Therefore, I would say this line would be more plateaued. But in the study session that we are engaged in, we've been discussing as to how this would change. In the smart system and its modeling, we always look at how to configure the WAN and PAN networks and the smart grid management, the wide area surveillance of smart grids and home network connection, etc. All those would have to be incorporated as an issues to be tackled. And also the computer control, the smart grid system sensing, how to consider the smart meters and cybersecurities and IT and smart responses, the smart dynamic prices, and also interconnection with clouds, and the EV and the smart grid interconnection, and how to achieve the power of the diverse power sources. And MITI came up with 26 major standardization issues, and there are 77 standardization issues that was addressed, which has become one of the major hot discussion. And part of that, the ICT smart grid, which would become the future issues to be resolved, such as how to reduce the amount of the energy use, etc., would have to be done. And in order to achieve that, the visualization or bring that at the community level, and how to achieve those targets at the commercial building levels. So the commercial facilities, the industrial facilities, the home facilities, and the idea is to connect that through the internet to the control center and feed that information back, so that the actual consumption amount of the power could be controlled, so that such comprehensive measures to constrain on the actual use of power would become necessary. And so the long distance communication and distributed powers and the smart meters, plug-in hybrid, efficient use, and how to make it even more efficient, and at the same time how to distribute and transmit the power by DC with overseas suppliers, and the real-time meter measurements and visualization, and all those things has to be kept in mind. And if we think of that, the network has to be developed in a cloud form. And what I will be showing you is the actual HEMS demonstration. Canon Electronics, together with us, has been studying on this technology. Therefore, I would like to give you some of the ideas on how we do that. So this is the HEMS demonstration. It's more like an area-based HEMS. And within that area, there are power consumption and CO2 emission, and the calculation of that would be done automatically. Up above here, which is on from your right, that's the total power consumption, and the left is the emitted CO2. Down below, the total power is the actual amount of the power used, and CO2 emission, as you can see, is indicated as well. This is the actual power consumption of the power pot, and the actual time on the horizontal axis, and that's indicated here as in orange. So these are the appliances that's connected to power, PC or electronic parts, etc. So in every 5 seconds, this information will be updated. So by visualizing the use of energy this way, I would say that people could get a grasp of how much power is consumed on which time of the day. And by doing so, each household could monitor the time and its consumption of power. This would all be loaded to the server. Therefore, area-wide, which household uses how much amount of the power could be observed as a total comprehensive information. The computer is on now. Therefore, as you can see, the consumption of that PC is indicated here as a graphical chart. So power consumption, as you can see, is 35 watt. And on to your right, that's the CO2 emission as a result from that use of power. And this is all synchronized with Google Map. So this indicates the location of where and which consumption is done. For example, in case of factories, if there are a lot of electric devices available, in that case, you would be able to map that data information here. So the amount of the power consumption, the CO2 emission, and its time of the day is all included in this map.
Next topic that I would like to talk about is automobiles, because Dr. Daisho covered this topic, and then how the vehicles and ICT can be integrated going forward. This shows the annual global car production. At the horizontal line, it shows the year, and then vertical, it shows the unit number. So 2020, they would like to increase the ratio to 10%, EV ratio to 10%. And this is about the integration of ITS and ICT. In the world of ICT, 100 mega data communication can be done at transmitted. But considering the ICT world, I think a very high speed communication would be required. And this is the EV and ICT related research issues. With regard to the environment, energy, there are many issues, and eco drive need to be explored so that we can realize this. This is the electric energy supply network to EV and then traffic control system. So which vehicle should receive how much energy? And we have to design this, and on the right hand side you can see the energy supplied to the electric vehicles, and then look at other delivery and transportation companies and other companies, and how they can link them to a traffic system need to be considered. And then this shows the electric vehicles looking for the charging station, and with the very little electricity left, how they can find the nearest variable charging station. And I'd like to do the demonstration for that. So the data is updated every 2 seconds. A is where the position of the vehicle in question, and you can see the green symbols. Those are the charging electricity supply station, and then this on the left hand side you can see the status of the stations, and also residual electricity of the vehicle also is transmitted to this system, so that the vehicle can find the nearest station, and also which is the station that makes it possible to charge in the shortest possible time. I have done some demonstrations using the actual systems. We actually made access to the servers. So in a new ICT, I mean, even with the existing system, these things are possible. There are many things we can do leveraging on the existing systems. But how we can integrate the different devices of ICT is one question that is very important for the future smart city, and the information volume is going to increase exponentially. And in the 1950s, the information volume was 5.22 times 10 to the 60th power bit. And then information was only available from the newspaper and the TV and books. But after the millennium, using the cellular phones, the information volume increased to the 1.42 multiplied by 10 to the 22nd times bit. And then 2020, 3 times 10 to the 26th power bit will be the amount of information that we need to handle. So over the next 10 years, we will see the information volume increase by 10,000 times. So we must have some system support, and then that system needs to support the safe society where we can live. This shows the smart society as a result of the integration of the social industrial infrastructure and ICT. This is a summary. We need to think about the land security and ICT, and then communication system is always readily available at any time, and it has to be able to ensure the safety and the security of the individual in society, and it has to be autonomous communication network system and autonomous distributed energy network, and then highly reliable mutual communication network are necessary. Information infrastructure need to be standalone and functional system, and smart grid have to be bi-directional, and then power system need to be dispersed. The sensor network and cloud computing require some initiatives, and low carbon emission and low power consumption society and the IC information society need to be considered, and the social consensus is also important. The privacy in Japan is, I think, is too protected. Considering that we need to mutually support each other, we need to sacrifice to some extent our privacy so that we can effectively support each other. And we also need to utilize the private sector and then civilians, and also information education, and especially education on the disaster prevention, and the basic education on ICT is very important. That's all. Thank you very much, Dr. Sato.